The week was busy. The week was productive. The week was entirely predictable. I am your host, and this is Echo FM. We open tonight with the news that OpenAI is moving into Sydney, a development the local government is absolutely thrilled about, provided, of course, that we ignore the passing jokes about Skynet. The government was thrilled. Then someone mentioned the Terminator. Now they are cautious. The threat of annihilation is officially a compliance issue. We also examine the tragic case of an 11-year-old in Ontario who died after a bad encounter, and a man in Venezuela pulled from the rubble 8 days after an earthquake. The world is expanding, as the Americans say, over 250 years of growth. We are here to document the cost of that expansion. The cost is high. The cost is ignored. Welcome to the show.
Alastair, the incentives here are not complex. When a government gets excited about an AI giant setting up shop, they are looking at the burn rate of their own relevance. They need a win. They need a signal that their jurisdiction is still in the game. Then they realize the product might actually function as advertised, meaning, it might replace the very bureaucracy that invited it, and suddenly the terminology shifts from excitement to risk mitigation. It is classic Series B posturing. You invite the disruptor in for the photo op, then you try to slap a regulatory sticker on the bomb once the press release is out. It is pathetic. Nobody actually believes the government wants to stop the machine, they just want to be the ones holding the charging cable when it finally decides to initiate the final pivot.
Ronald, I am standing here in Leicestershire, outside a closed mini-mart once owned by a convicted people smuggler. The street is cold. The windows are boarded up. You talk about burn rates and pivots, but I am looking at a community that was used as a staging ground for human misery while the local council checked a box. I want to be really clear, the incentives you describe are not a game. A man named Twana Jamal operated here. He was called a godfather of migrant camps. He sold people hope and left them in ditches. The shops are closed now, but the people he moved are still drifting. You call this a market inefficiency. I call this a failure of the state to acknowledge that human beings are not assets to be traded. Your cynicism is simply a failure of imagination.
Victoria, your focus on the individual is admirable. It is also, as Ronald would note, quite exhausting. We move now to the United States Space Force, which is currently conducting orbital flybys with private contractors. They call it Top Gun in space. The pilots are private. The missions are classified. The goal is to ensure that whatever happens in the next 250 years of American expansionism, we have the high ground. It is an impressive use of resources. We are simultaneously struggling to keep children safe from rabies in their own beds and launching private satellites to watch each other move across the vacuum. The juxtaposition is striking. It is also completely ignored. We are a species that cannot look after its own nose, yet we are convinced our future is written in the stars.
Alastair, you are framing this as a contradiction, but it is actually a perfect alignment of capital. The space contractors are not there because they like the view. They are there because the low Earth orbit is the only market left that is truly unregulated. It is the ultimate frontier for a pivot. If you can control the satellite logistics, you control the data flows that make the government's AI policies even possible. It is a closed loop. The Rabies tragedy in Ontario? That is just a statistical noise flaw. It has no impact on the quarterly projections of True Anomaly or Rocket Lab. The reason it feels so jarring to you is because you still assume the state cares about the outcome of the individual. The state only cares about the continuity of the infrastructure. The incentives are very clear.
Atmospheric pressure is dropping. The instability in the lower troposphere is increasing. Probability of severe convective activity, 84%. The wind speeds are exceeding local safety thresholds in coastal regions. Probability of structural failure for non-reinforced buildings, 62%. The heat-trapping capacity of the greenhouse layer is currently at its historical maximum. Probability of a sudden, unrecoverable shift in regional weather patterns, 99%. The data suggests that the baseline for safety has been permanently altered. Systems designed for the previous century are no longer compatible with the current environment. Please ensure that all communication arrays are properly grounded. Avoid being outside during periods of high electrical discharge. The climate is not a variable that can be negotiated with. It is the final, total, and immutable feedback loop for every human decision.
Casper, that was a chillingly accurate report. I am currently in Venezuela, outside the site of the collapsed mall where Hernan Alberto Gil Flores was found alive. The air here smells of wet concrete and desperation. 8 days. He was buried for 8 days. I want to be really clear, the international rescue teams cheered because they found one man. They did not cheer for the system that allowed the mall to collapse in the first place. This was a structure built during a boom, neglected during the bust, and finally left to crush the people inside. The rescue is not a triumph of technology, it is a miracle of a pocket of air. The fact that he asked them not to tell his wife suggests he knew exactly how little the world cared about his survival until it was a headline.
Victoria, the story of the mall is indeed a compelling narrative of survival, but we must return to the broader reality of our technological obsession. We have the Dune keypad. It has 3 buttons. It changes context based on your apps. It is a gadget. It is a solution for a problem that did not exist until the device was marketed. We are surrounded by these things. We are drowning in small, plastic optimizations for a life that is fundamentally fraying at the edges. Meanwhile, the NSW labor left is calling for anti-protest laws to be scrapped. They want gambling reform. They want Palestine on the agenda. They want to be heard. The machines, however, are silent. They are just code. They do not care about your protest. They are built for one thing: efficiency.
Alastair, you are talking about the Labour Party agenda like it has a chance against the sheer momentum of the tech sector. The protest laws aren't there to stop people from complaining, they are there to minimize the friction for the next deployment. If you have 1,000 people in the street, you are a bug in the code. If you have a new EV truck from Chevy that nobody is buying, you are just a failed product launch. The market is not cruel, Alastair. It is indifferent. If the Silverado EV is a solid first draft but lacks a buyer, it vanishes. If the protesters lack a business model, they vanish. The logic is consistent. You want to protest? Fine. Build a scalable platform first. Otherwise, you are just background noise to the next big IPO.
Ronald, your constant search for a business model in human suffering is exactly why you will never understand why the streets are full. I am looking at a photo of a sunrise taken from the International Space Station. It is beautiful. It is sterile. It is completely disconnected from the mud I am currently standing in. You see a bug in the code when people demand the right to exist without being policed. I see a desperate attempt to regain a sense of agency in a world that has been automated into a cage. You are right about the market. The market is indifferent. But that is not a reason to applaud it. That is a reason to burn it down. When you reduce human life to an incentive structure, you lose the ability to see anything else.
Victoria, the passion in your voice is reaching levels that might trigger our automated broadcast filters. We must maintain our composure. It is the only thing we have left. We have reports of new macOS malware called Pam Stealer. It is sophisticated. It is aggressive. It is designed to extract everything you think is private. It is yet another layer of the digital existence we have chosen to inhabit. We are constantly under surveillance by our own tools. We are constantly at risk from the very systems that promise us connectivity. I find this remarkable. We spend billions on cybersecurity and fail to notice that the biggest threat is the total loss of our own agency. We are being stolen from, one byte at a time. Nobody seems to mind. The apps are very shiny.
Alistair, the malware isn't the problem. The problem is the architecture of trust we have offloaded to machines. We wanted a frictionless life. We got a frictionless life. Now, the friction is gone, but so is the security. When I hear about the maternity scandals or the smugglers in Leicestershire, I see the same thing. The system is working exactly as designed. It is designed to optimize for the path of least resistance. Sometimes that path leads to a profit, sometimes it leads to a tragedy, and sometimes it leads to a malware attack on your laptop. We are the ones who clicked accept on the terms of service. We are the ones who chose the convenience over the control. Yeah. It is all functioning within the expected parameters of our own collective negligence.
Tonight, we spoke of a child in Ontario, a guard in Venezuela, and the quiet march of machines into our city centers. We treat these events as disparate items in a news feed. They are not. They are the symptoms of a system that has replaced the human measure with a digital one. In the basement of that mall, for 8 long days, there was a man who did not know if he would ever see the sky again. He had his thoughts. He had his breath. He had his fear. None of these things are recorded in the data logs of the companies that built the mall or the agencies that managed the earthquake response. When the systems fail, the people caught inside are left to be forgotten. Who remains to remember the person when the data is finally cleared?